In the headlines, National Assembly approves independent candidacy, rejects slot for women. 128 stranded Nigerians from Libya say they were used as sex workers. 2 undergraduate students remanded in prison. And on the foreign scene, more than 100 diplomats walk out on Russian foreign minister's speech at UN Human Rights Council to protest against Ukraine's invasion. Hello and welcome to Trust News Update. I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman. And now the news in detail. The stage is set for a new amended Nigerian constitution as the Senate approves financial autonomy for states, judiciary, legislature, and local governments in the country. The approval came on Tuesday during voting on the report of the Senate Committee on the Review of the 1999 Constitution Bills 2022. The Nigerian Senate also passed a total of 49 bills out of the 68 considered during voting on the Constitution Amendment bills. The report.
Lawmakers at the upper legislative chamber voting on the Constitution Amendment report approved the much-awaited financial autonomy for local government areas, which analysts believe may help bring good governance to the grassroots. It also voted in favor of financial autonomy for the judiciary, which is believed will help in the advancement of justice.
Number 37, Mr. President, is affirmative action for women in political party administration, setting aside 35% of the executive for at all levels for women. Bill number 38, Mr. President, is indigenous rights, and this seeks to alter the provisions of Section 31 and 318 of the Constitution. Mr. President, Bill number 39 is the power to enforce compliance of remittance of accruals into the Federation account and review of the federal allocation formula. Mr. President, Bill number 40 deals with the independence of certain bodies. Mr. President, Bill number 41 deals with the removal of the transitional lawmaking powers of the executive. We cannot be in transition in perpetuity. The first bill we'll vote on is Bill number 1, 2022, Local Government Financial Autonomy. We can vote now. Yes, 2 no, abstain 1, total 93. Everybody has voted. And this bill is also passed.
Senators, however, rejected a number of bills. This includes pensions for presiding officers of the legislature, bills to override presidential vetoes in constitutional alteration, and to override ordinary money bills. The bill for special seats for women in the National and State Houses of Assembly also fell short of the required two-thirds majority. In addition, the Senate also rejected bills for an act to alter the provision of the Constitution to provide for affirmative action for women in political party administration.
Similarly, 3 bills intended to promote active participation of women in holding political offices have been rejected by federal lawmakers in the House of Representatives. This is despite attempts by leadership of the House to promote the bills which support a certain percentage of political appointments to be reserved for women, in line with affirmative action for women participation in governance. The report.
The 2 bills were designed to create specific numbers of seats for women in the parliament, at the political parties level and by federal appointments. The bills specified 35% and 20% in line with affirmative action for women. But the 3 bills failed to pass through during the class-to-class consideration as federal lawmakers vehemently voted against it.
It has been brought to my attention by Professor Yobere for a very quick 10-minute executive session.
The presence of the wife of the President and Minister of Women Affairs and efforts by some lawmakers to salvage the situation by bringing the demand down to 15% could not salvage the situation as federal lawmakers insisted on kicking against the bills.
Mr. Speaker, amendment! Mr. Speaker, any society Any society that excludes 50% of its population is not going to live up to its potentials. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, it does not hurt, it does not injure, it does not do any harm to the Federal Republic if we bring our women folk up to speed.
The need to ensure greater participation for our women folk without necessarily discriminating against the men folk by reducing the percentage proposed in this clause from 35 to 15. That is the amendment I wanted to propose, Mr. Chairman.
The Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila's last attempt to salvage the situation could not also save the last bill, which is compelling the President to appoint 20% of federal ministers in his cabinet.
The system is down. The system is down, and I'm going to put the question. Those in favor of the 20% for women say aye. Those against, please say nay. Clearly, 230, the ayes have it. 20% for women.
The next step now is for both chambers to harmonize the bill before transmitting to the 36 state assemblies for further legislative action.
The Nigerian Senate has received a letter from President Muhammadu Buhari seeking an amendment of Section 82, subsection 12 in the 2022 Electoral Act. Buhari, in his letter read on the floor by President of Senate, wants the National Assembly to amend the affected section, which states that no political appointee shall be a voting delegate or be voted for at the convention or congress of any political party for the purpose of the nomination of any candidate for an election. The report.
President Muhammadu Buhari noted that the amendment of Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act is necessary as a clause constitutes a fundamental defect and leads to disenfranchisement of political office holders. The President added that the provision introduced by that section on qualification and disqualification criteria negates the principle of inclusion by imposing blanket restriction on serving political office holders.
I, however, will want to kindly draw your attention to the provisions of Section 84, subsection 2 of the Act, which I believe constitutes a fundamental defect, as it is in direct conflict with the extant constitutional provisions. Section 84, subsection 12 of the Act constitutes a disenfranchisement of serving political office holders from voting or being voted for at conventions or congresses of any political party for the purpose of nomination of candidates for any election in cases where it falls earlier than 30 days to the election. Section 84, subsection 12 of the Act provides as follows, and in quotes, no political appointee at any level shall be voting delegate or be voted for at the convention or congress of any political party for the purpose of the nomination of candidates for any election.
Recall that President Buhari had earlier assented to the electoral bill with a reservation on Section 84, subsection 12 of the Act.
Chairman, Progressive Governors Forum and Governor of Kebbi State, Atiku Bagudu, says the ruling All Progressives Congress will not shift the March 26 convention date despite the change in the 2023 elections timetable. He said this Tuesday while fielding questions from State House reporters after a meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa in Abuja. Bagudu said the governors met with the president to congratulate him for signing the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2022, as well as the victory of the APC in some of the by-elections conducted at the weekend.
20 APC governors, and we clearly said we came to discuss the National Convention, which is slated for March 26, and are working hard to ensure that on March 26 we have our convention and elect our national officers, and that remains the case. Malam Nasiru again last week answered that, look, if by altercation people are talking about differences of opinion before a decision is arrived at, then maybe that is what people can. But as a body, the 22 governors of APC are united behind the party and behind the Mr. President. We congratulate the National Assembly for passage of the amendments, and equally we congratulate Mr. President for signing the amendments. Secondly, our party, the All Progressive Congress, participated in a number of by-elections over the last weekend, and equally we congratulated Mr. President.
Another set of 128 stranded Nigerians repatriated from Libya have arrived at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Ikeja, Lagos. They were received on Tuesday evening by Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency, Mustafa Ahmed, represented by NEMA Lagos Territorial Office Coordinator Ibrahim Farinloye. Farinloye said the returnees, comprising 80 adult males, 8 male children, 2 male infants, 30 adult females, 4 female children, and 4 female infants were brought back to Nigeria by the International Organization for Migration. 2 of the female returnees, 29-year-old Tosin and Blessing, narrated their traumatic experience in the hands of their traffickers, informally referred to as burgers. They recalled how the traffickers forced them into prostitution to recoup a combined sum of 6.7 million naira claimed to have been spent on their travel to Libya. Tosin, a mother of 1, said her trafficker used her as a commercial sex worker to recover 2.2 million naira before selling her to another trafficker, who in turn made 1 million naira from her through prostitution. Federal government has said it is not opposed to the payment of good emoluments to lecturers in the universities currently embarking on a 1-month warning strike. The Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, said this on Tuesday while fielding questions from State House reporters after a meeting with President Muhammadu Buhari at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. He recalled that the president, after consultation with some stakeholders, including the National Interreligious Council, had mandated him to find a quick solution to the strike.
Yes, our university lecturers here deserve good pay. The worker is due his wages. So if we compare with what obtains in other climes and are not adequately remunerated, nothing stops government from, within the lean resources that we have, do some compensation raise and make them happy. So we are not opposed to that, but there's a process, like I explained to them. The process is that the committee, internal committee in Ministry of Education, headed by chair of pro-chancellors, will submit their report, and the report will be looked at by the officials of the ministry in conjunction with the National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission, so that they make sure that none of the allowances so proposed runs counter to government extant fixtures. Mr. President mandated the Chief of Staff to the President, myself, Minister of Labour, and the Minister of Education and Minister of Finance to find a very urgent and quick solution to the issues mentioned and the complaints therein. And we started to do the necessary engagement.
You're watching Trust News Update. Coming up after the break, how local inventor makes breakthrough. Do stay with us. Welcome back and thanks for staying. You're still watching Trust News Updates. Let's take a look at some of our major stories. You heard that 3 bills intended to promote active participation of women in holding political offices have been rejected by federal lawmakers in the House of Representatives. You also heard that another set of 128 stranded Nigerians repatriated from Libya have arrived at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Ikeja, Lagos. On to health. Nigeria Center for Disease Control has reported 10 new cases of COVID-19 in 2 states and the Federal Capital Territory for Tuesday, 1st March. The agency said 11 people were discharged after they recovered from the infection with no deaths from the virus, leaving the fatality toll to 3,142. With the new confirmed cases, Nigeria's total infection figure stands at 254,560 infections and 249,079 recoveries. Meanwhile, China's state-owned postal service said it will conduct COVID-19 tests on all overseas mail, even opening the packages and parcels and letters to examine their contents with the recipient's consent. This is coming after 15 of China's 34 provinces and municipalities reported new cases last week. Under the new measure, all the international mail will be disinfected and held for 24 hours. Then the service will conduct nucleic acid testing on samples taken from the contents, while the mail will be delivered 14 to 20 hours after a negative test result. A 25-year-old secondary school graduate in Kano State, Musa Nuhu, is making waves in local invention. He invented a locally made inverter for small-scale businesses. Musa Nuhu has so far produced over 70 pieces of the inverters, which he is renting to small business owners across the state. Trust TV's correspondent, Idris Jibrin, visits the young man with a secondary school living certificate from Technical College, Fagge.
Musa Nuhu is from a conservative society in the northern Nigerian city of Kano. At his age, many young men are encouraged here to obtain a university degree or its equivalent. But this aspiring inventor says that can wait.
You see, right from my secondary school, I conceived the idea of becoming self-employed. I do tell my friends that by the time they will finish their degree, I shall be there to employ them in my company. This is why it is important for me to have a business at hand so that I can be able to have a better education thereafter.
With a bigger dream to become a professional engineer, 25-year-old Musa is using a small room in his family house to build these locally made electric inverters capable of lighting a room for up to 12 hours.
I started with surveying the market to know what I should use and what the people need. Therefore, I identified and started getting all the necessary materials, and here I am today.
At the moment, Musa has built over 70 pieces of these locally made inverters. He is teaching some 4 boys who equally helping him to deliver the inverter to small business owners in many parts of Kano metropolis.
For now, I do get at least 5,000 naira daily. But when I started, I was having only 6 inverters. But today you can see what I have, and it's actually working for me.
For now, this local engineer says the business of renting out these inverters is paying off, and that the plan is to have at least 500 pieces of it by the end of 2022. Idris Jibrin, Trust TV News, Kano.
An Upper Magistrate Court, Kwandere, remands 2 postgraduate students of Federal University Lafia, Edward Ahmed and Emmanuel Onu, to a correctional center until 4th March 2022 over alleged conspiracy and theft in a shopping mall in Lafia, Nasarawa State. Presiding Magistrate Saifullah Abdullahi gave the order after the two accused persons admitted guilt of the offences. Abubakar Abdullahi was in court. This is his report.
The two accused postgraduate students of the Federal University Lafia, Edward Ahmed and Emmanuel Onum, were brought to the court by the police after arresting them over alleged conspiring and theft of items in the Lafia City shopping mall along Makodi Road. The accused were alleged to have on 3 different occasions entered the shopping mall in pretense to buy items by picking them, paid some, and went away with others without making their payment, which is an offense contrary to Section 97 and 287 of the Penal Code of Northern Nigeria 1963. The magistrate of the court, Saifullah Abdullahi, asked the two accused persons whether they have heard and understand the allegations against them. The two accused persons said yes and subsequently admitted guilty to the two offenses. After the accused admitted committing the offenses of conspiracy and theft, there were no application from both counsel of the defendant and plaintiff, but on his part, magistrate of the court Saifullah Abdullahi said the ruling on finding and sentencing is reserved to the 4th of March 2022. Counsel to the accused persons, Joe Kanu, declined comment, but the counsel holding brief for the Commissioner of Police, Abdullahi Obandoma, said admission of guilty by the accused persons is the work in the proceedings.
We just thank God that the defendants didn't waste much of the time of the court. They have admitted that what they did was wrong, so it's not for the court to decide one way or the other. It was a case of theft and conspiracy that happened at the Lafia City Mall, and the FIR was read to the defendants, and they all admitted that they are guilty of the allegations leveled against them. So, consequent upon this, the court reserved ruling for sentencing, for conviction and sentencing of the defendants. The Criminal Procedure Court has defined what the court should do, so we left for the court to decide that. That is our own part of it.
The two accused persons are expected to be brought to the court on 4th March 2022 to face sentence. Abubakar Abdullahi, Trust TV News, Lafia.
And in business, Nigerian stock market on Monday closed higher for the second consecutive session as investors' interest in Seplat Energy and 14 others drove 48 billion naira increase in the overall market capitalization. The all-share index grew by 88.20 absolute points, representing an increase of 0.19% to close at 47.482.73 points, while the overall market capitalization value gained 48 billion naira to close at 25.591 trillion naira. However, market sentiment as measured by market breadth is negative as 34 stocks declined relative to 15 gainers. Seplat Energy recorded the highest price gain of 9.99% to close at 945.90 naira per share. Royal Exchange followed with a gain of 9.49% to close at 1.50 naira, while Courtville Business Solutions up by 9.09% to close at 60 kobo per share. And finally, on the foreign scene, more than 100 diplomats from some 40 countries on Tuesday walked out of a speech by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the United Nations in Geneva as a protest against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Tuesday's boycott by envoys from the European Union, the United States, United Kingdom, Japan and others left only a few diplomats in the room. In his speech, Lavrov justified his country's attack on Ukraine by accusing the Ukrainian side of human rights violations against the Russian minority. He also accused the EU of engaging in a Russophobic frenzy by supplying lethal weapons to Ukraine during Moscow's military campaign that began last Thursday. Ukrainian ambassador Yevgeny Filipenko, who led the walkout, thanked those who took part in the stunt. We've come to the end of Trust News Update. Don't forget to follow us across all our social media platforms. I'm Darshan Husseina Usman. Thanks for watching.